emotional regulation here too is lowering those expectations.
Right.
So it's about having a whole menu of options that are based in being kind and gentle about where you are in space.
Feeling the pressure of all these cultural expectations and they're going through life is, you don't have to go.
Yeah, I was just thinking
you
the
don't
same
have to
thing.
go. You can stay home.
I've been in a lot of situations where somebody's like, I'm not going to drink today. And they're like, what? Not drinking on Thanksgiving? Who are you? Right?
Yes.
And those just kinds of subtle guilting people,
Yes.
you know, you just don't know what people are going through.
And you have attempted to explain, you've attempted to dialogue, and consistently the feedback that you get is some form of gaslighting rather than like, hey, yeah, I get that.
Welcome everybody to Therapist Take. This is part 2 of our Thanksgiving series, and we're going to talk about in part 2 from conflict to connection, healing relationships over the holidays. So don't go anywhere. Hey Carrie.
Hi, Josh. It's been a long time.
I know. How are you doing?
I'm making it. How are you
Good.
doing?
We had such a lovely discussion with our guests
I know.
in our last episode.
I know.
That we're so fortunate to have them back. Our friends Whitney and Shannon.
Came all the way back.
We even asked them just for continuity to wear the same outfits.
We
as
did.
We would do the same
It's
thing.
easier for you to edit, really. Yeah, right.
right. I mean, there's no way we'd film 2 episodes in one day. That's for
Never,
sure.
never. Crazy.
Right. Well, we are glad to have you guys back, Whitney and Shannon. I am going to just briefly give you guys another introduction. So, for our viewers, we have our guest, Dr. Shannon Dial, who's a licensed marital and family therapist here in Oklahoma. She has a wealth of knowledge and experience and has helped countless individuals, couples, and families navigate life's challenges and complexities. Wow. And ChatGPT did a hell of a job on that description. But we are now very proud to have her as part of our team here at Family Solutions Counseling. We're so excited to have you. And we're also thrilled to welcome back Whitney Alexander, which I learned last time. It's not. I've been saying Warren Alexander for years. You know, even though it's like, what's your middle name now?
Yeah, it's my middle name. I'm like a child actor.
Right.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
So
I
Whitney.
think I got it from you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Carrie
Little
helped
connection
solve
you guys
a
have.
little
I know.
kerfuffle.
Carrie Smitherman
premarital
Kiger.
kerfuffle. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
fancy.
Warren's a little easier to say than
Yes,
Smitherman.
yes. Make it your middle name so you don't ever really use it.
But back to my ChatGPT.
Yes, sorry to
here.
interrupt
The
your
intro.
AI.
Whitney Alexander, licensed marital and family therapist, and who also is an EMDR therapist and soon to be consultant. You're still a consultant.
I'm consultant in training.
Consultant in training. I say you're still
CIT,
consulting.
we say.
Right. She is the owner of the Warren Alexander Group in Stillwater, Oklahoma, which might help you explain why everyone might still say Warren, since it's Warren Alexander.
I agree.
But she is, you might have know her better for the podcast episode that we did on complex PTSD, self-awareness, and most recently on gratitude versus grief.
Fresh.
Thank you guys for being here. So before we begin, let me just kind of go through the housekeeping things one more time with everybody, and then we'll do the episode breakdown. So just want to remind everybody who's watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the alert bells so that you can be notified when we post more videos or when we go live. And then if you really like the episode, please hit the like button. It really helps please the algorithms, and then we can get the information out to people easier that way. And then if you're watching or listening to this on the podcast platforms, please just stop what you're doing for a second, because if you didn't do this last episode, you need to do it this episode, and go give us that 5-star review so that we can please those algorithms. And so, but we really appreciate everybody who's supported our channel, supported this podcast. So let's do the episode breakdown. So last time, this is part 2 of our series. So last time we did gratitude versus grief, where we kind of unpacked the whole phenomenon of the coexistence of these feelings and the cultural impact and the impact of life experiences. So if you haven't listened to that, please make sure you go back and listen to that. But now we're going to talk about basically what to do about it. So we've entitled this episode From Conflict to Connection, Healing Relationships Over the Holidays. But what we're going to talk about, we're going to start out with talking about just practical steps to emotional regulation, which Carrie, you brought up emotional regulation in the last episode. Boundaries has to be a part of this discussion. for sure. And then what does it look like to foster connection and growth? So basically, during the holidays, which for people that are grieving can be very difficult, is there any opportunity there, basically? So, or any relational opportunity? So that's what we're going to do. But before we do it, we should play a game.
No, again?
Oh, I have
The
another one.
same game? I mean,
Yeah,
the
don't
same
worry,
game
the
we played
same
last
game.
week?
The same. I'm not doing the same game. So I have two questions. Since this is a Thanksgiving special, if you couldn't have turkey, what would be your alternate dish? And then if you could only have two sides with this alternate dish, what would they be?
I would love to host an all sides
That'd
Thanksgiving
be
where
kinda fun,
everybody
actually.
That'd be fun.
brought only sides and no meat.
Okay. But if you can have only two
Whitney's
sides
topic.
with your all sides,
I'd definitely pick mashed potatoes and probably my sister's broccoli cheese casserole.
ooh, man, a good that. Those are Whitney kind of scowled at the broccoli cheese thing, but they're they have to be made well. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like coleslaw. Like most coleslaws are terrible in my opinion, but
A good
if
coleslaw.
you get the right combination, it's delicious. And I think
Cool.
same thing about broccoli and cheese casserole.
I would like a meatful Thanksgiving, and I guess if you're gonna take my turkey away,
You guys are like the polar
I
opposites.
know, right? I was like, on my side, I'm bringing to Shannon's is meat. I guess I would have brisket, and the two sides. So we're doing sides with brisket, yes, not just delicious sides. I guess I would do a coleslaw and some kind of a potato. You really can't go wrong with a potato.
I never met a potato I didn't like.
Right, I
That's
like
true. You
in
really
any
can't go wrong.
variation.
I would do ham if I can't have turkey, although I love turkey. And then I would probably pick mashed potatoes and stuffing. We discussed before.
Stuffing, of course.
I mean, I really like all the sides too, but I don't like broccoli cheese casserole.
So my alternate would probably be shepherd's pie, which
What? Who does that
Did
at
you just
Thanksgiving?
cross the pond? What's happening right
Did
now?
you just pull that out of nowhere?
I've literally
have you
never
been
eaten
to
shepherd's
it? Yeah,
pie
have-
in my
Have
entire
you
life.
been to a Thanksgiving where there's like, would you like turkey, ham, or shepherd's pie?
If you love it that much, I should not ever be able to say to you, I've never had it. That doesn't seem right.
Because we love you, we're gonna
I like it.
we're gonna
I
have
don't
it.
feel like you could go wrong with
It's
shepherd's
alright.
pie.
If you
Nah, I don't
Did you
really
say
like
it's all right?
I'm joking with. I'm
Yeah.
messing with you, Whitney. It's okay.
Get out of
You
here.
know what? I
Josh.
don't really like it. I don't know why I said it.
I'm so confused.
Reverse,
You're
reverse.
reminding my 4-year-old.
I mean, I just thought it would impress you guys, and that's why I said it.
You're so cultural.
So, anyways,
the funny.
I wish I hadn't have done that. bit,
I
so.
feel sorry for people that have logged in and this
That's
is
what I
like
feel sorry
Why are we
too.
talking about
Oh my
shepherd's
Like,
pie?
what?
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on from vulnerability, let's get into the episode.
Squishing your vulnerability.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we were talking about in the first episode. We were talking about the conflict or the tug of war match between grief and gratitude, right? And did we all come to that conclusion that about honoring self and that all the feelings can exist, and it's not about trying to pick one to master the others. So now it's like, is there opportunity in the holidays when you are going through that?
I kind of think about being in the mire, if you will, or we've called it before the crucible, that there is so much to be known in the depths of grief and the depths of psychache or heartache, right? And I think most people don't often find out what it's like to stay there because we so quickly move ourselves from there because of the belief that we shouldn't stay there. And so when I encourage people to stay there, they begin to talk about grief in a way that is a true grief experience rather than just a grief emotion. And I think there's kind of this dull roar of grief that maybe lives with us every day when we've had a loss, but there is the grief that is the experience of grief underneath that has all the things that we've used to put our grief experience together. It's the memories, it's the things that we may be feeling relief that somebody's gone, figuring out how it feels good and bad that we lost somebody. I was thinking about that in a family that's going through divorce, and this is their first Christmas without a lot of family conflict because they went through divorce. And so imagine being happy, being relieved, starting over, all those things. And so I know that we talk about it like just expressing your feelings and being vulnerable and things like that. And I know that that's not generally easy for people, but just not letting things go and spending time exploring them can really teach you things about yourself. It's more than just a feeling. I really think it's an experience.
Well, and I think if somebody has the courage to share that, and again, I think sometimes it takes tons of courage to be able to be that open or authentic. Grief is such a universal experience, even though it's sort of hard to put our finger on, and it can be over so many things, right? It can be over a loss of, a job, a marriage, a person that's not through death. There's all kinds of ways that we can experience grief, but if somebody's courageous enough to say it out loud, I suspect, unless somebody's just very unaware, there has to be at least one or two heads nodding along, like, yeah, I mean, I might not feeling like that today, but I hear what you are saying, and thank you for putting that out there. I mean, again, I may not be feeling that today, but I have certainly seen that before.
Yeah, you will never lose. Just advice to all of us, and to myself to remember too. You will never lose being around somebody that's been through something really hard, and you're at a happy party or you're at a happy event or it's the holidays, where you choose to say, I know maybe this holiday isn't super fun, or maybe it feels really painful. You being the person that remembers, instead of saying Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, you being a person that says, I'm thinking about you, and it may not always be easy during this time. It is just so validating that people took the time to realize that there's a mix of emotions around the holidays.
Around every holiday. I feel that way about Mother's Day a lot. Like Mother's Day is just so fraught with so many emotions, and sometimes my see social media and kids and stuff, and I just try not to forget my past or my history and the complexity around so many holidays like that.
Right. There's a really good book called A Monster Calls. Have you guys heard of it? It's a novel. It's a story, and it was actually recommended by a client I had, and it's just a fantastic book. It's a hard book. It's about grief, and just to kind of give you the rundown real quickly without ruining the story, but it's basically about a 15 or 16-year-old kid whose mom is dying of cancer, and is going through his process with him, but the way they tell the story is like one night a monster comes to his window in the form of a tree, and he says that I'm going to come 3 more times, and each time I'm going to tell you a tale, and on the 4th time, after I tell you the 3rd tale, then you're going to tell me a tale. And all 3 of the tales present these seemingly black and white type of scenarios, and but when you dive into the complexities of them, they're not so black and white. It's actually a lot more complicated. But then you get to, after the 3rd tale, he has to tell a tale. And I'm not going to tell you what that is because I don't want to ruin it. But it does illustrate, the fact that he's got a story, that is happening inside of him. And kind of in a way, this monster kind of nurtured it out of him, to get your story from the inside to the out, because it's not pretty. It's dark usually, and I think when we talk about, like, are there opportunities here, each of the points that we're going to talk about when it comes to emotional regulation, boundaries, connection, and growth, these are the opportunities, I feel like, but it's just not how we typically think of opportunities when it comes to going through something like this, because, like, I'm looking for an opportunity to help you, or to do, to do, and sometimes being still is the thing you have to do. I think you were talking about that a little bit. Let's just kind of move into talking about the emotional regulation piece, because I think we'd all would agree, like, you're going to have a hard time doing anything if you can't emotionally regulate, because when you're going through something that's happened in your life that has generated this type of grief, coupled with the holidays that has all these cultural expectations, family culture expectations, you can get dysregulated real fast.
And
Right?
dysregulation is really just like too much too fast, right? Like
Yeah,
the
that's a
way
good way
I
to put it.
conceptualize dysregulation, too much too fast. It's our way of trying to stem the flow of too much stimuli.
Yeah. So, what are the, practical steps or just some things that would be helpful for people listening to this, and like beginning steps in learning how to regulate?
I like people to think about, it goes back to the 3 pillars of self-awareness, but it's remembering that we process information in 3 different ways. We have it in our thinking, we have it in our feelings and our emotions, and we have it in our body. And so, not everybody processes information exactly the same way. So I think it's helpful to know how you process information and recognize that for our feelers, right? There may be some regulatory practices that they engage in that might not look exactly the same as the body sensation people, that might not look exactly the same as our thinking people. And sometimes we might even want to borrow from somebody else's center of intelligence or pillar, just simply because I have this one down pat. But I do like people to remind themselves, just because some people really like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just because some people use 4 square breathing doesn't necessarily mean that one is going to connect with how I process and my
Sure.
centers of intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think too, though, this is kind of where it's important to have it's kind of like an emergency plan. You want to have it already kind of established for all. So even if you tend to be more of a body process, let's go ahead and have how we're going to,
Get a couple
regulate
of
these
online,
logic.
yes.
Let's address the thought, the quality of thought, right? What if, and then let's move into the emotion. And that way, you get to cover all the bases, and it's okay if you have one that you do more than the other. But if you're devastated, if you're in grief that's feeling so raw or so non-normative that it has overwhelmed all systems of you, you're not going to be able to 4 square breathe 3 times and get through your family holiday get together.
Right.
You're going to have a nice menu of these different things, right?
right.
And I also think that part of the emotional regulation here too is lowering those expectations.
Right.
Right, it's perfectly fine to say, I'm going to call this event a success if I don't, start screaming obscenities when I'm feeling overwhelmed, right? And I just exit instead, right? Or whatever. So it's about having a whole menu of options that are based in being kind and gentle about where you are in space, right? And I think acknowledging that in advance also puts your system in more regulation, right? And more balance. Like when I say regulation, I kind of mean in balance. You're able to move as you need to move, right?
I do, on that thought too, because I want to, since Whitney has talked about this before with us, and on the 3, you call them pillars of self-awareness. Do you think it's in a crisis situation, like when that dysregulation happens, too much? How'd you say it?
Too much too fast.
Too much too fast, right? Do you think it's probably important to focus on the body first?
I'm a body processor, so I'm a bad person to ask.
Oh.
Right? So, I think it would be good to ask somebody who's a more emotions-focused person. What are your thoughts, Shan?
Yeah, I guess, where Whitney may be all body, to me, the body is so important, but on a spectrum. So Brene Brown said in a post that she's always used stress and being overwhelmed synonymously, but she read in a John Kabat-Zinn book that he said stress is being at the carnival and being like, that whack-a-mole game was really stressful. And being overwhelmed is leaving the carnival crying because you're so overwhelmed, right? And so to me, when I'm in stress, I feel like my emotions are I'm just like emotionally stressed, but when I'm overwhelmed, I feel it in my body from head to toe. Heart rate, breathing, sleep, all the things. And so to me, what we do for our stress self-care is different than what we do for our overwhelmed self-care.
That's
Good point.
That's really
I don't
nice.
know.
Yeah, that's, I
Yeah.
love the idea of just checking in with, like, again, for somebody, if they just let themselves cry a little bit, that could be, you know, a regulating experience, that they are spending so much time trying to stop themselves from a natural expression that needs to happen, that crying might be a form of regulating them. It would never be probably what I would choose to do on purpose. I'd probably be more the type that would want to, you know, ground through sensory, et cetera, et cetera. But I like the idea of like recognizing what is the system that needs the expression.
Yeah, I think being overwhelmed, you know, what you can do in your body to get out of overwhelmed, what you need to do, you know, between breathing and, you know, sleep and all the things.
Or
It just
call
re-
your friend and
Yeah, it
tell
just,
them, can I just?
yeah, so I think, you know, you need to aim the solution to where we're at in the
Right.
continuum
Sure.
of, are we just having a stressful day or are we in the overwhelmed?
Right.
And so when we think about self-care, I think of self-care plans, or sometimes we call them personal safety plans in trauma-informed care environments, where the personal safety plan is something that I've, in a non-reactionary time, told Whitney
Right.
that, hey, when you see me doing this and this and this, remind me that the ways that I feel better are to do this. Go for a walk, go listen to some music, disengage from my phone, those kinds of things. And so, but those things don't necessarily work when I am overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Just grabbing a Coke or going for a walk when I'm overwhelmed, it's just not the right intervention for the level of emotion.
Right.
Kind of like to your point, Carrie, of like, let's have a menu. And, you know, sometimes I try to get people to think about the menu based on a 0 to 10, you know, so
Scale.
like, hey,
Sure.
if your stress level is this to this, these are the coping skills we like. If it's medium, these are the coping skills. If it's high, this is probably the only ones that are going to work for you. But all of them take a level of self-awareness that ideally we're developing over time. But if we're not developing them over time, then right, we're just trying them. Right, we're writing down the whole menu and saying, well, not that one. I took a walk. I still feel like caca. Oh, I called my best friend. That didn't seem to help. Oh, I did my polyvagal resets. That one didn't help. I took a nap. That one helped. You know, like
Sure.
choosing from the menu.
I think too, though, like thinking about it in the context of conflict or grief, remember some things overwhelm the system. The menu you have isn't sufficient, right? And so I just want to
like that.
normalize the fact that part of the reason people go to therapy or you sit down and you allow yourself to fall apart, whatever that looks like. That's, you know, an acceptance that what I've got isn't working, and I want to just normalize that.
Yeah.
I don't know who's prepared to lose a parent. I don't know who's prepared, right, to watch your child suffer. I don't think we come preloaded for this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think we take what we have, but we're going to have to be expansive in that, and that is not a reflection of your inability. It's a reflection of what's happened,
Yeah.
right? And so when we think about conflict being an opportunity, it's also information about, oh my gosh, what I've got isn't sufficient for this. Okay,
And that does
Okay.
not say anything about me.
right. Or even the family
Right.
system,
No.
right? Sure.
Yeah, we're doing the therapist thing too. We're basically not answering the question, right? Like, because I think the reality is that it's what, you know, the practical steps for, you know, emotional regulation is going to be unique to every individual, right?
Sure.
Because it's going to be your own formula.
Did I ever tell you my favorite therapist answer?
What?
It depends.
Right? Yeah.
That's all we ever say.
It is. We're so annoying, and I
Yeah.
know
So
that.
annoying.
That's why I do like simple things, and like
Yeah.
Josh referenced, I know what Carrie will say, because I do think part of our job, and I try to do this to myself and to the people that I'm responsible, you know, to, and then for clients of like, okay, I know you don't know where to go. Sometimes let me just steer you over here, because even
Right.
I always say it this way: just get in the water, and the water will take you where it needs to go.
Right,
So
right.
I'll gently guide you here.
Yeah.
What you know? What you haven't been doing very good sleep, but the more you worry about sleep, the less you sleep. So we're gonna take sleep off the menu for today, and instead you're gonna go to take a walk at desk, right?
Right.
Right, and so the guidance of that is
DBT
something
has
to
this
do.
whole list of pleasurable activities.
Yes,
Like
we
there's
have,
like
we have, I
200
think we have a
pleasurable
list in our
I
bathroom
love
or
it
something.
because I'm just
Yeah.
like,
No, it's great.
hey,
Yeah.
Yeah, DBT
Even
stands
if-
for dialectical behavioral
Yeah.
therapy, and they have probably 100 skills.
Dialectical. Oh, got it.
so it's
all
like,
these years.
hey, I'm gonna give you this
Haha.
list of 200 things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all 200 are gonna land with you.
That's right.
Not the same 15 are gonna land with you on the same
Right.
day based on the
Right.
same distress that you're experiencing. It's just for funsies. Take a look,
That's
see
right.
it, keep trying it.
It just it makes it tangible. I think
Yeah.
it's and I think that's why I gravitate toward the body stuff, because it seems to be less ambiguous on what to do and how to measure it. It's success, like. And
Walk for 20
right,
minutes, I can measure, yeah.
Right, and I think like when we talk about practical steps, and you're talking about, I think you're talking about are you talking about box breathing? Is the same
Yeah,
thing as
Foursquare breathing,
Four
same
square
idea,
box
yeah.
breathing? Right, but there are different types of breathing techniques, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's
lots.
the box breathing is the breathe in through the nose for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds, and out through the mouth for 5 seconds, right? But then there's like one that's like breathe in through the nose for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, and let out for 6 or 7 seconds. And it does something completely different to your system with the different types of breathing techniques. But that is such a simple tool to put in your toolbox, because you can do that driving down the road.
All the time.
You can. So breathing techniques, I think, are crucial to regulation. Breathing's crucial to living. So, but
Do you-
having your own flavor though that works for you, and kind of getting past the awkwardness of it too, to let yourself just do it, is something you just pull out at any given time. So that'd be just one example.
Yeah, I have back to the knot of complex trauma that I typically see, breathing doesn't work for everyone. So just because we're suggesting this as a great place to start
Right.
doesn't mean that you're broken because breathing, quote unquote,
Yeah.
doesn't work for you.
Right.
Right? Breathing can be wired to bad things.
I was-
Because if you took a breath right before, your dad hit you, it's wired to trauma. So it's not
Sure.
necessarily calming you down. And that's okay. There are so many other things besides breathing. Breathing's a great place to start, and it's so helpful for so many people.
Right.
But if it doesn't work for you, there's so many
Well,
other
that's
things.
that's the key though. Is like if all you have is a hammer in your toolbox, then and you got to put a screw in the wall.
Josh.
I mean,
Carrie.
I would try it.
Carry hammer screws in the
What?
wall.
Did.
Carrie.
It was trying to hang stuff at the office. It was time. I just did it.
Yes. So, but you can see the problem that.
She sees no problem from where I'm
Stuff's
sitting.
hung.
That's true.
It's like,
Equifinality.
Like,
Yeah. yeah.
just don't get under it.
you hang stuff over your bed like that.
I'll let you know.
But if you just have the one tool, so I agree with you. I'm not trying to say that there are a lot of different things like that are practical. They're easy to grab, but the key is you gotta have them in the toolbox.
That's right.
Right, and then you're gonna have your own unique flavor of things, and in addition to I know now if it's a nail, I don't just have a screwdriver. If this, I have a which was part of the problem we had, right? We didn't have enough tools in our
Yeah.
toolbox.
We literally did.
Literally,
things, yeah.
right?
I was going to say something just as a tip for the holidays is that people could kind of make a safety plan in advance of going to the holiday event. Probably how it's going to go. You could develop some phrases you might need to tell people if you need to take a break. You could develop some phrases to tell people if you need to go for a drive and come back. If somebody brings up a topic that's hard, just really trying to predict the scenarios that you might be faced with if you're having a really hard time being in social situations.
Yeah.
So that it's sometimes what's most overwhelming is something was unpredictable.
Yes.
And it hits you and you're like,
Yeah.
I didn't expect you weren't gonna say that this holiday event, in the same way for some different political events, that have happened that we might just, if we're easily triggered, think in advance of what you can do and say at the event to maintain your regulation. And if you're triggered, then what can you do to take a break to bring yourself back down?
Yeah.
good.
These
So
are
the reg-
boundaries, right?
Yeah, we got to talk about boundaries. Yeah.
Well, that's what
yeah.
this. I mean,
And
these
so-
and these aren't boundaries necessarily that you need to announce to other people.
That's right.
I mean, you can.
You can.
You can. But
You just hold up a sign that says boundary.
Now
right.
you need a shirt.
Triggered.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Just make your
exactly.
shirt.
Right.
In my family, that would just be invitation to
Oh,
start
I know.
cooking that beer.
Yeah.
Then you can just make a drinking
Really?
game out of it. And
Does that surprise you, Josh?
Yes, a little bit.
she comes by it honestly.
She
Very
does.
honestly.
Very lived experience. But these are boundaries. A lot of times they're boundaries that you're going to hold, right? And I've noticed for a lot of people, like, just giving themselves permission to say, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. Like, you knowing you have the bag, or whatever knowing that it exists takes out some of the, the scary part. But I think with boundaries that we can do our best to anticipate and rehearse, and then we have to have a uh-oh in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause
Contingency,
sometimes
right?
Right, because there are people it's unexpected, or even, and it's sometimes not even another person. Like, I don't know about you guys with grief, but grief is sneaky, right? And grief is not always something that you can tie to something someone said, right? It can be
Right.
another sensory thing, right? Or it could be a feeling in your body, and it hijacks the system, right? And so
Right.
even just having a whatever contingency, kind of, okay, if that happens, then that also is helpful, right? And I think I think it's more true, anyways.
Right.
I think a boundary buddy, also, when I think about, a boundary buddy, so let's say if we're all at a social gathering, there's a lot of people. Beforehand, I would say to Whitney, I'm not sure how today's going to go. I may be trying to kind of, implement some boundaries to protect my emotional well-being. Could I count on you to kind of support me in the larger group? So that looks like when I say, hey guys, I'm going to head out early, and everybody's like, oh, what? Loser, all this stuff, the things that make you feel bad
Yeah.
for leaving the family
Shepherd's
gathering
pie.
earlier. Then I could count on Whitney to be like, hey guys, she
Right.
needs to go take care of some things. Just let,
Sure.
So
Sure.
you kind of have a support system that you pre-arrange to support you in your boundary setting.
Sure.
This is reminding me of when my sisters and I back in the day used to go to the club, right? And so when we would all be dancing together, we had a signal to come rescue, right? So if
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
was
Yeah.
dancing too close to us, or we were not enjoying
Crossing your boundaries.
the attention, so the signal was this.
Oh, that's
Like you
good.
kind of just like fluff the back of your hair.
Rescue.
Great boundary buddies in the
Yeah.
sister system.
Yeah.
No, that's
They're-
great. Yeah,
they're-
that's, and I think, I mean, we do those things in our everyday life in a lot of ways. It's just, there's something about holidays that just like, cause you're gonna, counter the cultural expectation, but I think most people, I mean, most people that you would ask to do that are probably gonna be compassionate towards you. And if they're not, then there's information there that
That's
you
right.
probably don't need to ask them, and if you don't have those people in your life, there's more information there for you to,
It's time for a Friendsgiving.
Right.
Yeah.
the Friendsgiving, yeah.
Yeah. But I think even you saying that, it's also an opportunity for all of us, if you recognize that somebody else is setting a boundary, to respect it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right? It's such an invitation.
Stop making
so
it
that
hard on people.
Right.
Yeah,
the releasing
absolutely.
the judgment
Yeah.
and respecting each other's boundaries. And you don't need to
Yeah.
know. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Just
Read the
well, we'll
room.
see you next time. It was lovely to see you.
Yeah.
I don't know where that person went. I guess
Yeah.
that they were ready to leave. And then that's it. There's no gossiping or whatever. Like, it's okay. Everyone needs to be given that same space.
Yeah, I think the same thing with, it may sound cheesy, but just, alcohol in the holidays or something, people in grief may need to set some boundaries, with that. And a boundary buddy for those kind of instances with alcohol might really, be important. But
Yeah.
I've been in a lot of situations where somebody's like, I'm not going to drink today. And they're like, what? Not
Yeah.
drinking on Thanksgiving? Who are you? Right?
Yes.
And
yes.
those just kinds of subtle guilting people.
Yes.
You just don't know what people are going through.
Right,
And
right.
so
Yeah,
be a
it
grown-up.
means
Right.
nothing to you if
right,
somebody's
right.
Yeah, what do
It's
you
like
care?
the stuffing. More
Offer
for
them
you.
tea and sparkling water and
yeah,
move on,
yeah.
right?
That peer pressure, in times of unhealthy grief, peer pressure really forced me to avoid what I know I needed so that I could be popular and be liked and,
And
you know.
not feel like you lose something that was
Yeah,
important to you. You
yeah.
already have so much loss.
Yeah, so you just push through these social situations where the outside of your body is pretending to be in a place where the inside of your body is dying. Yeah, and so the boundary, you know, the pre-work and the pre-planning of setting a boundary helps you walk through that. People may guilt you, but standing up for yourself and your boundaries is going to be really important, and you're worth doing that. When you go to sleep at night, you're going to go to bed a lot differently than if you said no than if you said yes.
Yeah.
You know?
I want to say real quickly, because we brought up a couple really good practical things like the rehearsing, before you go, pre-planning, playing out the situation, so that you have that. And then I love the boundary buddy piece, which I think is particularly important for single people. It's easy for me, if you have even a remotely good relationship with your spouse, you can, usually they'll, support you on that.
Yeah.
But for if you're single, you have to be a little more intentional with that. But I also think too, like if you're realizing like there's just not that person, write it down. Just write it down and just go over it and just like
Practice.
and you
A holiday
in a
safety
way,
plan.
Like you're becoming your own boundary buddy in that sense.
That's right. Well said.
And but I do want to say one more thing to that too, is for people that are feeling the pressure of all these cultural expectations and they're going through a lot, is you don't have to go.
Yeah, I was just thinking
you
the
don't
same
have to
thing.
go. You can stay home.
Like, I was thinking
And
when we
people
were-
may guilt you for that too, right?
Right,
Sure.
and like
You
when we
turn
were
your phone
talking
off,
about
it's okay.
preparing for this, I was like what I really hope that people understand is that there's this concept of family of chance versus family of choice. And that was something that was introduced to me when I was in the substance abuse world, is that I was born into this family by chance, and sometimes they meet my needs and sometimes they just don't. And part of the struggle, I think, so often over the holidays is that it's so family oriented that we don't give ourselves permission to say, you know what, the family I was born into, I just looked around and everyone's a boundary pusher. Nobody is a safe person when I say I'm not drinking today, or nobody's a safe person when I say, can we please just keep the television tuned to something a little bit more neutral, or I'm feeling a little raw,
Or not on volume 100 like some people's houses.
yeah, like some if you look around and there's not a form of acceptance anywhere you look in any corner, and you have attempted to explain, you've attempted to dialogue, and consistently the feedback that you get is some form of gaslighting rather than like, hey, yeah, I get that. We've all been there. Thank you for telling me.
Right.
Then maybe that's not the place you go for the holidays. It doesn't sound terribly fun to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we? I'm sure you guys have had this happen. I've had it many times where I've said those words to clients, like you don't have to go.
Yeah.
It's okay. You don't have to go this time. And of course it's a lot easier said than done.
Oh, for sure.
Because kind of what you said, whether it's judgment or
Internal
shame
or external, right? Like I'm judging myself, or
Right.
they're good to my kids, but they're not nice to me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, someday your kid's gonna see through
Right.
that too.
Right.
There's so many reasons that people give themselves to try to stick it out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it comes back to honoring the self, and now what I would say is that if you decide not to go, I think you got to ask the same question that you would ask on why you feel compelled to go. Why do I feel compelled to go? But if you're not going to go, why do I feel compelled not to? Because you really want to feel good about the decision you made, even if you look back on it and decide that you would do it a little differently next time, that you can still, be proud of yourself for some of the things that you did do. It's just the whole process is a polishing process anyways.
Yeah, it is.
There is no perfect. I use this
Right.
analogy a lot, and it's funny because I'm not very sportsy, but like I always say, we have 4 opportunities to get the ball 10 yards down the field. And I use that in life, right? Like I don't expect myself to, win every single time that I have the ball. I have more than, maybe, I'm trying to polish up how I'm doing Thanksgiving based on my new boundaries, my new awareness, et cetera, et cetera. 2023 was this, I learned some things. 2024, maybe I did a little bit better this year. What can I do for 2025?
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I do think this last point on fostering connection and growth, that, to be honest with you, you talk about feeling overwhelmed. I don't even do that when things are going well during the holidays. Like I'm not like itching to go like restore relationships during the holidays. So the first thing I want to say to that point is that you don't have to do that. Especially if you're hurting, you're suffering on things, like it's okay to just kind of work on the relationship with self in that sense. But if you feel like there is an opportunity and you want to take it, like what would be some of the things you guys caution people or to remember in moving forward during this time of year, and you're going to take an opportunity to kind of address a relational issue?
Timing.
Yeah.
Location. Like,
I almost wonder if that's out the window given your timings during the holidays.
right. Well, I mean, are you going to
It's the
do it at
worst
the
timing.
dinner table?
Right. Yeah.
If you have a
Right.
quiet,
Yeah.
corner,
Yeah.
some people spend more than just one day.
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to happen there. Maybe
Right.
how it happens, right? Does it need to happen right now? Does it
That's a
happen
good point.
in like email? Does it happen over text? Does it start, like, does it have to be one big, huge
Right.
rupture repair
Right.
conversation, or do we just start?
Right. If you're getting ready to eat your meal and they say, let's have a prayer, and then in that moment this would be a good opportunity to address my issues with religion with my parents.
Right.
I was like, that's
Yeah.
probably be considered a bit impulsive.
Well,
I mean,
Could
but
yeah. Yes.
but it doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. I'm just
Right.
saying that kind of to your point of timing and why do you feel compelled to do it?
Yeah, those are to consider the timing of it, because like I tell people, like it's like real estate is location, like,
Yeah.
but relationships is timing, right? Like, and again, it comes back to something Carrie said earlier. I don't remember if it was this week or last week, but we were talking about just the idea of like thinking about like taking some of the pressure of it off. Like, does it have to happen all like this, or can I lower some of my expectations for what a successful repair looks like today, or this, it doesn't have to all
Yeah.
look like one specific thing anymore.
I think the sweetness in a sense that can exist in the holidays is, there is this, and it's a cultural expectation, but it's available. The idea of connection and connections over time and specialness, and even the how fast things go. I think that all makes it available to you to want to say, maybe I do want to get in that spirit, and maybe bring up some things and try and heal and repair. So I think that can be true, right? But I think you have to be realistic about it
sure.
too, right? And that's where location is key.
And I'd say the other thing is, like, I think sometimes what we think of as repair may shift the healthier we get and the more we live on this planet, right? Like, I've seen so many people change how they consider what a repaired or working relationship looks like with somebody in the family based on the relationship that person has with their child, right? Of like, okay, like there's part of me that's really hurting because I didn't get some of those things, but also, that may be the closest that I can get, and some of it doesn't feel exactly like the repair that I was looking for, but there's something about it that's a bit restorative for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I think also just planning, everybody, when they want to try and restore a relationship, especially with the goodness of the holidays, you just sometimes maybe convince yourself it'll work out and that it is good timing. And so if at all you can consult with somebody and run your plan by somebody, but also to prepare in case you don't get the restoration that you hoped for.
Right. I always tell people that it's an invitation, and people can accept or decline. And so if you're going to issue it, you need to be able to live with whatever their response is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think some people have been issuing the same invitation for so many years, right? Like
Sure.
it's just, it is, my heart is just with people during this time. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are also hearing loads and loads of it right now as we near
Sure.
this part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the same conversations we have.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most common ones I have in reference to timing is telling people, like, there's usually never a good time, but there are often better times. You know, and the holidays often is just not a good time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, but sometimes that's really contextual because, like, you know, certain things, do I want to deal with this, you know, before Christmas, or would it be better to deal with it afterwards? I mean, it's really a good, based on what's going on, it's a question
Yeah.
that has to be addressed.
Or if
And-
I see how you do with this information may make me make the choice of how I want to handle further holidays, right? If we're having
Yeah.
some of, if I'm
Yeah.
opening up some conversations with you and the way that you're responding may make me want to make a specific choice about how I handle this
Yeah.
particular holiday, this particular year. I think there's a lot of like black and white thinking sometimes around repair and restore.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what we're all saying to some degree is like, let's just be aware of the black and white thinking that can exist around rupture repair, because it's mostly shades of gray.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, where people end up is, you know, so unique for them
Right.
that we have to get, you know, really, really, you know, curious about, you know, wading into those shades of gray.
Sure.
Good
Yeah.
point.
So good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I think that's
Good
a good
place.
place to stop to end on. We thank you guys for having this
Yeah,
conversation.
thank
It's a good
you.
discussion.
It is.
We know for people that are tuning in, listening to this, just like we know that people are hurting, you know, and I think kind of the gist of it all is that you have to be willing to honor yourself, you know, and it's okay. I think you said that, Shannon. Like it's okay to do that. Like
Yeah.
it's okay to care for yourself for once, you know, where you can just make it about you for a little bit, and usually, like, when you get really good at that, people benefit from that. You know, the people that you love.
And bravery is contagious.
Right. So as we enter into the holidays, we hope you guys will, you know, be considering self and setting boundaries and having some tools in your toolbox to get ready for it. And you just got to let that be okay this year. We should do this again. You guys in
Yeah.
agreement?
Hope everybody has a good holiday.
Yeah, I hope so.
If you're ever hankering for turkey and gravy, I could
Love
even add stuffing.
Oh,
I have
that would be
so
like
many frozen
such a
What about
gesture of
shepherd's
love.
pie? Like,
I
would
don't
you-
know how to make shepherd's pie, but if you
You could
bring
do
it,
it.
I will try it.
Thanks, you
All right.
guys.
Thank you guys. Thanks for being here.